Most of what I do in all the agriculture that I do has something to do with some kind of scientific research. And this year I planted about 12 different varieties of tomatoes to see which ones would do the best here in the greenhouse. Some are doing good, some are not doing so good. And so it's funny because people hear that I'm this wonderful gardener or whatever, and then they come see my greenhouse and half my stuff looks dead because I'm doing all these experiments to see what will happen. So in my book that I just finished writing, and it's in the final stages of getting ready for the publisher, which is so exciting. I talk about different tools and tests that you can use in your own garden for just a normal person, not a scientist, just a normal person. And one of the tests you can do is a side-by-side comparison test. And so that's what this is. It's a side-by-side comparison test in the climate of this greenhouse with the soil conditions we have, the way that I farm, so my conditions, because the way I farm affects the plants different than the way a different farmer would farm. Your habits of farming change how the plants react and how they will grow. For example, if you don't water anything, your plants all die. So that is an absurd example to say what I'm talking about. But here's a variety right here. This tomato is coming up here and it's growing strange. It almost looks like a calcium deficiency of blossom end rot on the bottom. It's not actually rotting, so but it's certainly not a good tomato. But we're going to let that ripen. There will probably be some good fruit on it that we can eat, unless this does begin to rot. And this is deformed here also, although we don't have the darkening on the blossom end there. So this is a variety, and when you look at it, it's kind of pale. There's quite a few leaves that are dying up here on the top of the plant. If you get some dead leaves on the bottom, not such a big deal, but that's not what's happening. This is some kind of a disease. It's a problem. It doesn't like the environment. It doesn't like the soil. Something that this one doesn't like. And if you pan that way up about 10 plants right there, you see that this entire variety are all this way. It's not this one individual. It's the whole variety. So this is a variety. If I really need to have this variety, I would have to do a breeding project to breed resistance into this. That is not what this side-by-side comparison is about. This comparison is to see if this variety will do good in our conditions without fancy plant breeding. And so this is a variety I will not grow again. And I don't even know what variety it is right now. But I have...
You have records.
Well, no, I have big tags in the ground. I would just have to dig in the weeds and so the point is, this is the time of year when you want to know that. If we wait till the end of September or in October when all the plants look bad, then we won't know which ones look bad and which ones look good. And if we try to remember, we don't remember. So the difference between science and not science is you write it down. You have to keep records, and that's that. Okay, now this variety right here, this is a different variety on this row, and it doesn't look very good either. I mean, look at this one. This plant here, it's piddly and small. It just didn't do well. Same variety as this one. This one has some big green tomatoes on it. Well, how many? 3 tomatoes? And I don't think we've picked a tomato off of this variety yet. And this one, it has 2 tomatoes. And they're spindly. They're light green. You can see the veins that are a different color than the flesh of the leaf. Something's wrong. It's not looking healthy and happy. And so they're not.
It also doesn't have new blossoms on it. I mean, it's not even trying to put out anything new.
Yeah, this one, that one does right there, but they're just not doing well.
Yeah.
They're just not happy. Now we come to the next variety on the back row here, and these plants are bigger. The leaves are much larger. They're thicker, more leathery, more healthy. If we look at the bottom of this tomato here, blossom end rot, and so we do have a calcium deficiency here. Now, is it a calcium deficiency in the soil? Or is it a calcium deficiency genetically? They couldn't take up the calcium. If you go back to the videos when I planted these, I was putting in a tablespoon that had lots of calcium in it. I had ground eggshells, I had bone meal, and we had azomite. All of those things have calcium in them, different forms of calcium. There's plenty of calcium in this soil. We do not have a deficiency in the soil. What we have is a genetic deficiency of these particular types of tomatoes that are not taking up the calcium for whatever reason. I don't want to deal with that, so I will not save seed from any of these, and these varieties I will not be growing again. So this is a good thing to know and understand. So we come up here, those plants on the back, they look pretty good. And we're coming along. Now we've hit a new variety right here. So see how this is full and thick?
Jungle in here.
See, back over here, all you see is strings and a spindly leaf once in a while. But when we get to these other varieties here, we get to the point where we don't hardly see any strings at all. So now we know that the ones up there not doing so hot. We don't want to try to grow those every year, or else that's the result we'll get every year. We want a result more like this, where we have a big, beautiful, healthy plant. Now there's no ripe tomato on here to show you right now because we picked yesterday.
There's an almost ripe tomato.
Okay? We picked yesterday from this little section right here that's about 30 feet long, whatever, and we walked out of here with a 5-gallon bucket of ripe tomatoes, which was pretty awesome. And they all came from right here except for some cherry tomatoes on the very end, which are doing pretty good. So when we look at this plant, we have the nice new growth. We have lots of blossoms that are blooming. They look really good. The leaves are pretty much one color. The veins and the flesh are the same color pretty much. The leaves are uniform size. They look good. We don't see a lot of dead foliage. We come down to the bottom of the plant where you expect the big mature leaves to start losing you know, I mean, it's down there, it's deprived of light, it's a very old leaf. Now, this is not a diseased leaf. This is a leaf that has simply been living so long that it's starting to die. But it's interesting because you don't see any predators. There's no disease, there's no pest starting to take care of this leaf yet, which shows that this plant has really good genetics. It likes this environment, it's thriving, it's doing very well. And they tasted good.
That's the ultimate
now
test.
We come up here, and we come in here. So what's happening with this one? Is this a new variety, or is this a problem with this one particular plant? I'm not sure. We would have to dig around and find the plant tags that are in the ground to understand that, and that's a job we're going to do very quickly in the next week or so. But this could just be a disease problem with this one specimen within this variety, or it could be another variety. But I don't think it is another variety. I think I changed varieties up here from memory. So this one did have some kind of a problem. The leaves are yellowing. There are issues. There are problems. What is the problem here? I don't even know. But I'm just showing you that if you do side-by-side comparisons, if you had 10 varieties and you only grew one plant of 10 varieties, that's not a good scientific experiment because you need to have controls. You need to have something that shows you if something was an outlier. This being the same variety, it's an outlier. It doesn't mean it's a bad variety because I have 20 plants of this variety, but this one is showing a bad problem. So if this was the only plant of that one variety, I would never grow this variety again, which would be silly. And so when you set up a scientific experiment, set it up so it's actually scientific, so you can make some good conclusions in the end. Okay, more things about tomatoes. As we get up here, we're into another variety. This is a kind of a giant big variety in here. And a couple of these were ripe yesterday, but they're just starting to ripen now. But I don't know if you can get in here and see that big boy.
Wow.
But he's a pretty good size.
That is
a nice big tomato.
That's a one slice on your toast tomato.
Yeah. And see, here's some more starting to ripen.
Oh, they smell so good.
Mm-hmm.
I wish fragrance could come through on a video. The smell of tomato plants is wonderful.
But so we have varieties that are doing well, we have varieties that are not doing good, and we have a specimen here and there who are struggling, which is totally normal and fine. Hopefully this helps you to be a scientist in your tomato patch.